Welcome back to the pod. Today is a fun one. It is, for many of you who know me, you know I live in Denver, and I moved out here February of 2021. And the first person I met in Denver, Colorado was Eric Hinman. And we have stayed connected since. It's fun to see him grow, really what he's been working on. And, you know, Numa's growth is come alongside that as well. And we've chatted plenty about business. But Eric, man, I'm excited to have you on the podcast. Give for people who don't know who you are, give a little background. How do you introduce yourself if somebody asks?
Yeah, I introduced myself almost 10 years ago now as retired at 34, exploring the world most days shirtless. And really was doing that 10 years ago. And by doing that, I really fell into this world of content creation, lifestyle design, and, inspiring others to not just chase the public perception of success, like not just try and work your ass off to make as much money as you possibly can, but to live a damn good life too. And for me, a lot of that is based around wellness protocols, exercise, recovery, community, having great friendships with people, and building a business where you enjoy who you're doing business with. They're friendships just as much as they are business relationships. Um, I'm a 5-time Ironman. I compete in CrossFit. I'm getting very close to getting to the CrossFit Games in my age group. I do Leadville 100 mountain bike race every year. I train about 3 hours every single day and have for the last 15 years. And I work with a lot of brands, mostly in the wellness space, mostly consumer packaged goods brands. And I do a bunch of investing as well, angel investing and helping some of these brands raise money. And we should dive in a little bit more into the story of how we met, because you messaged me on Instagram, which is one of those amazing use cases for social media of the ability for people to meet. And you saw that I was jumping into cold streams on a regular basis in Colorado, and you were coming out to visit, and you said, "Hey, can I join you to jump into a cold stream?" And anyone who messages me in January offering to jump in a cold stream with me, I'm like, that's a fucking person I want to meet. So, I think you were about to graduate from college, and I'm like, yeah,
I was still a senior.
senior in college. I'm like, yeah, let's meet up in Boulder, and we'll jump in. And I think that day it was like 15 degrees. The water temperature was probably 33, and we sat in there for 3 minutes together, and we've had a great friendship since.
We have, and yeah, I put my hands in foolishly, and I couldn't drive. I couldn't feel my hands on the way home. The heated steering wheel definitely got turned on. And I love that intro too because, right, you've created a life where you can layer in a little bit of everything into business. I know your backstory even broader than that of like how you got into the endurance, but not fully. People don't wake up one morning, maybe you did, wanting to be an Ironman, wanting to explore the world shirtless, wanting to do CrossFit. It doesn't just happen. How'd that transition go?
Yeah, none of them just happened, and none of them were really conscious decisions of when I started down the path to where I got. How Ironman happened was I was pretty out of shape in my late 20s. I spent my early 20s building an insurance business, driving 50,000 miles a year, wearing a suit and tie, going door to door, selling insurance to commercial businesses in upstate New York. And in my late 20s, I was pretty dang out of shape. I didn't have any education around healthy eating. I thought Subway was my best option when I was on the road. So most days I was having Subway for lunch, and then for dinner, like I just wanted to eat until I was super full. So that generally meant some kind of pasta. So 27 years old, I look down and I have this like flab over my forearm from my bicep. And in college, high school, I was always lean. I played sports in high school, and I played 1 year of basketball in college, weightlifted in college. So I had just gotten super out of shape. So I hired a personal trainer. That was about a 6-month journey to go from, pretty out of shape to, okay, I'm back into shape now. he had me doing CrossFit type workouts before CrossFit was a thing. So I was lifting moderately heavy weights, mainly complex movements. And then he had me either rowing or running on this track in between sets. So lifting weights with my heart rate elevated. And over a 6 month period, doing that for 30 to 45 minutes, 5 days a week, I got back into aesthetically good looking shape. That led me back into running, which I had had a running background, running cross country and track in high school. So I started running again, signed up for the Boilermaker, which is a 15K 9 mile road race in Utica. And after that, I was smashed for like 3 days, 4 days. I was so sore from running 9 miles. So, that's when I really made the correlation between, having an aesthetic doesn't mean fitness per se. Like I wasn't run fit by any means because I hadn't been running. I didn't have that durability. So started running again, really enjoyed that. And then I bought a bike. I started biking, and through biking, I met a bunch of friends who were doing this half Ironman that was coming to Syracuse. And I just couldn't believe the distances, the 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, and then a half marathon. And I'm like, you guys do that in a day? And he told me like the times they were expecting. And I'm like, that's crazy. But I was intrigued. So I signed up for just a sprint distance triathlon. I had no swimming backgrounds. I had the running
Doing
background.
a sprint try without swimming background is it's a gutsy
It
move.
was, yeah. And I swam for like a month leading up to it. I joined a Gold's Gym and I started swimming in the pool. So, I was able to at least side stroke and backstroke, which is how I got through that first sprint distance triathlon. And then I did an Olympic distance and then a half Ironman. And I ended up hiring a coach who was beating me in these longer distance triathlons, even though I was beating him in shorter distance triathlons. And he taught me a super valuable lesson. It was zone two heart rate training, and he taught me that I had to slow down in order to speed up. I was doing everything just like too hard in order to build the durability and the aerobic engine necessary to excel in half Ironman and full Ironman. So he backed me way off on my pacing, and that allowed me to build durability, to increase my weekly volume, to do longer sessions. And ultimately, I ended up getting to the Ironman World Championships twice, and became an elite amateur Ironman triathlete over about a 4.5 year period. So, I mean, the big lesson through that was there's a big difference between um, training for something, or let's say in business, like purposeful progress, or just like doing it to get a check mark win. And, I was just exercising prior to having a coach, and he taught me what training was, like how you actually excel in the sport. Um, and then the other was like, you can be world class at anything as long as you focus for long enough on it and you put blinders on to all the distractions in life. You're building businesses right now. I know you have blinders on. You are very focused on building those businesses. And I mean, that's what you have to do if you want to be really successful in anything. Is it's just compounding consistencies every day, like, inches and inches and inches in one thing over time. That amounts to this crazy successful journey as long as you stay on that dedicated, purposeful path.
It's the whole get 1% better. You look up and it's, 30, 40, 50 times growth, and you're just little small movements add up over and over time. And funny enough with what we do in business, but I just talked about it today with a client that, your 5% growth month over month might not be all that exciting. I get it. But if you add that together and you're patient, you put those blinders on and just focus and push this forward, you're going to be in a whole different spot in a quarter, in a month, or in a quarter, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the line. That stuff adds up quickly. I think it's a good segue though to talk about, right, everything that you've just said. The premise of bringing it up and me purposely wanting to talk about it, yeah, that's not only your life, but it's almost a marketing tool, right? Like you're getting in front of these customers, you get to talk to them, or companies, excuse me, you get to talk to them. You're using that almost as a growth mechanism to help these businesses grow. How do you think about that on the front end? Because I know a lot of the brands you represent, people are searching for that type of stuff. They're looking for, I think of somebody like a Masa, right? They're searching for something a little bit unique, a little bit custom, but definitely in that health sector. How are you thinking about supporting the businesses that you're supporting on the influencer side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, I specifically, and I'm picking brands that weave in with my lifestyle. So, better for you food products, which is something that I'm very interested in personally. I do like apparel. I like apparel brands that build community, that make you feel like you're a part of something. So, that's why I pick the apparel brands or shoe brands that I pick. Supplements, I think supplements are the icing on the cake, but some supplements really do move the needle. And, also, I do think if they're, if they're not making you feel a certain way over time, I think they're nutrients that can certainly help with lifespan, health span. And at the very least, oftentimes when you're, buying a lot of these things for wellness, you are committing to wellness. So I think it puts you in this mindset of, okay, I'm dedicating money towards these things. So I'm going to start being more mindful about getting enough steps in, about exercising on a regular basis, about eating single ingredient foods, about getting better sleep, about having better relationships, about having less stress in my life. So I think that's important. And I like working with early stage companies because that's what I know best. I mean, I've started my own businesses. I've grown businesses from, early stage, bootstrapped, small amounts of funding. So that's where I feel like I have the most business knowledge, is in that early stage. And my favorite part of any business is, bringing it to market. I love helping create a brand. I love getting people excited about a brand. I love, building community around a brand. I love building brand ambassador programs. I have lots of other friends in this space, and I know which ones move the needle for other brands they work with. So, and I also enjoy linking up people who want to invest with brands that are looking for funding, where I perceive them to be, a brand that's going to grow fast. They have a good operator. They have good customer acquisition costs. They have good long-term value of their customers, and they have an operator who's super passionate about the product or service that they're offering. I like having a direct relationship or friendship with the founder of the company that I'm working with, and yeah, that's how I pick who I work with. And my resume is certainly the number next to my name on Instagram, but I think what creates really long-term relationships and what creates my name getting name dropped amongst a lot of wellness brands is all of these other services that I'm doing for them. I'm putting the hat on of, I want to provide massive return on your investment. So that's why I pick who I work with. I want them to
Well, I
be
mean,
long.
hidden in that as well, right? It wasn't just I make really good content that gets people to buy something. It's getting people excited. It's building the community. It's everything that surrounds that. I think that's definitely, if you're listening to this, you're definitely interested in it. How do you get somebody excited about a brand new product? Like, what's your thought process around whether you want to use a real one or not? But like, what's your strategy? What's your thought process to get that excitement to build that community? Because it's one thing to say it, certainly another one to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, who else are they working with? Like, what does the ambassador program look like? Because, ultimately, most people need to see something several times before they're going to be really interested in purchasing it. There are some cases where, like, okay, Beam Dream, like I have been an avid customer of Beam Dream ever since they launched it, because there's no doubt in my mind I sleep way better when I take Beam Dream than when I don't. So
I was just telling somebody the other night, my sleep this week, I found the packets that you gave me, like 5 little samples. So I need to try this again, and I need to track it with the Whoop and figure out, do I actually sleep better? And it's been 5 best sleeps of my life, I think.
yeah, I mean, I'm just knocked out when I take Beam Dream. So, that's something where, I can kind of share my story around. I spent 8 months dabbling with various pre-sleep protocols, supplements, temperature of my bedroom, sleep masks, earplugs. So, I can just share my experience of, here was my pain point. Like, I was training 5 hours a day. I was managing several businesses. My cortisol levels were off the charts. I was, getting to bed at 10, not late by any means, but I was waking up with my mind racing at like 3 in the morning because my cortisol levels were so high. So, some of it was on me. I had to take some off my plate and, get my cortisol levels back in check. But, having found that sleep supplement that no doubt knocks me out and allows me to sleep longer without my mind racing in the middle of the night, like I'm going to tell people that story, and that's definitely going to, create customers, because there's a lot of other people who I'm sure suffer from that same thing. So, I mean, that's one way, is sharing your own personal story of how something has benefited you, what your pain point was, how you solved it, and how much better, life is now. But the other is really the brands that make people feel like they're part of something. Um, like, Ketone IQ, 10,000, BPN, Rad is, in my opinion, building out an incredible brand, the shoe brand. You just like they're cool. They're working with.
It's more than a brand. You get it's almost like a badge, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's cool to wear it, cool to rock it, cool to talk about it.
Exactly. Yep.
As you said that, right? I think whenever we talk about the search economy with Numa, past guests, right? The idea is that your customers are on offense. They're looking for whatever you're offering. I think people hear that, and a lot of times they just assume that I'm going to argue Google's the only way to do that. That's one search engine. Instagram's another search engine. And I think it's interesting as well. You're talking about creating this content. People are searching for all sorts of stuff like this. I am familiar with a lot of people in the space that you play in. Your brand has always stuck out to me because it always, right, you're truly standing behind some of these products. Like the example you just gave for Beam, you were the customer before you were the influencer and the spokesperson, right? So to speak. How do you think about the content that you create? Because I see a lot of it following you, but being close to you as well. It's so custom, it's so unique. Like you're throwing your story into it, but you're leaning into the pain points that everybody else has and trying to pull the two together to say this is the product that you should be trying.
Sure. I mean, because I lived through it, I'm not really just a content creator. I'm just a storyteller. I'm telling my stories of my wellness journey, and, all of the things I've learned over time to get to where I am now. So honestly, how content for me has changed was when Instagram first came out, like it was a place to share photos with my friends. I mean, my first post was probably 2010. And then in the Ironman years,
And mine was probably a food.
yeah,
Like
exactly. Mine
it
could have
was
been
just it was like a public photo library.
exactly. And then, in the Ironman years, I started sharing more and more around Ironman, and I recognized that people were really interested in how I was balancing running multiple businesses with my training, with also doing CrossFit and maintaining muscle mass. So, I was posting more of that, but it still was kind of a highlight reel. It wasn't really sharing a ton of the journey. It was just like, hey, here was, my bike split today. Here's my sexy new bike. Like, I just PR'd at, this half Ironman. It was more like the highlight reel. And the last 3 to 5 years, I've learned to make it much, much more about my journey and just sharing, things that I've learned, and also like being relatable. Like I wasn't always this guy training 3 hours a day, and a high level endurance athlete and CrossFit athlete. Like I was literally an out of shape insurance salesman. So, I like sharing that, like, I didn't come from any kind of crazy, Olympic family, or I didn't have, any genetic gift. I wasn't jacked in my, mid 20s and late 20s.
And for people listening, not to cut you off, they should go follow you on Instagram. But I think that's one of your pinned posts. It's the side by
It
side
is. Yeah.
on Instagram. Yeah, that's a good post to see and look at to really get the full photo of it. But yeah, well, it goes back to consistency compounds as well.
100%. And now it's been 15 years of living this
Yeah.
way. But yeah, no, so instead of just posting, selfies with my abs, it's like I want to share the journey, and I want to share the various steps I took of, like I stopped drinking alcohol in my late 20s. That was a massive decision. I, started doing triathlon. I joined a triathlon club. I joined a CrossFit gym. I made this list of tiny wins that I wanted to accomplish every day. Like all of these things I did throughout. That's what I'm sharing now on social media. And, I've made it much more broad. I've made it lifestyle based instead of niche based. I think early on, it's really good to start with a niche and be a thought leader. But, I want to be relatable to a lot of people. And I feel like a wellness journey is relatable to a lot of people in a lot of different ages.
Yeah, I mean, you hit both sides of the spectrum. If you're going from A to Z, here's where I was and here's where I am now. You can relate to a lot of people, but It's funny you say that. Whenever we work with brands, and really the next question I want to dive into is how do you think about growing some of these companies? But a lot of times we'll get brought in and it's like, okay, do the SEO thing, which is fine. But the SEO thing is all about getting you at bats with customers. It's getting you in front of the people already searching for what you do. But that doesn't guarantee anything. That just means you get to swing the bat now. And right, these brands and companies need the unique story. It's not just the thing, right? Nobody buys the tactic, they buy the story that surrounds the tactic or the product. And figuring that out from a personal brand side or a company brand side, I think is the big thing. Um, you hinted at it though, right? Like you started Nation and you've done the broader wellness thing. I think when people search for wellness products, they're going to end up somewhere in your realm of influence or maybe even your page. What are some of the other things outside of what you do on Instagram, telling the story, building it? Like if you come into one of these new early stage brands, if you have a checklist, I'm giving you that word, but what are some of the things that you're looking at to say, okay, this could be a really fruitful opportunity. Here are the levers I want to pull to make that happen.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, leveraging my network is the biggest one. So, I have a product seeding list of friends who are in this similar space to me, content creators, thought leaders, athletes. So, I allow brands I work with access to that product seeding list where we're sending out handwritten postcards signed by me and by the brand. And a lot of the people who receive those products, they'll end up posting about it. So, they're amplifying awareness well beyond what just I can do. And then I have the same thing for friends who are podcasters. I've met a lot of buyers at retailers. I've met people that own grocery stores. I know a lot of the big event organizers. So, really just opening up my Rolodex as a consultant to all of these and their friends, opening it up to friends that benefit too, like obviously these larger events, they want cool new brands and, podcasters, they want to talk to up and coming founders of companies. So, I just try to make a lot of really valuable, two-way valuable introductions. That's a lot of what I'm doing. And then also the community building, from as small as, this every single night, 3 to 6 people coming over to sauna. Like
Yep.
that's like, 1,500 people every single year that come over in sauna and leave with this incredible memory of this amazing wellness night to larger events, hosting the toughest mile in different big cities, and hosting founders only events where I curate these events with 30 to 35 founders of brands. So like the in-person stuff is so impactful. And when people come to the house, we have a whole product seating area where people can grab whatever they want and they can try new brands. And at all of these events, people are getting swag bags. So literally putting products in people's hands. And I think that's incredible guerrilla marketing early on for any early stage brand is how can you get your product into people's hands in the most memorable way with the least cost.
And I was gonna say you're definitely a community person. You rattled off founders only, the hardest mile, toughest mile. I'm now forgetting. I butchered it.
Either, yeah, we're branding it as the world's toughest mile.
World's toughest mile, founders only. Your Sisu and ice barrel in the backyard. How are you thinking of some of these? Eh, On the surface, it's community, and I think knowing you, you actually love the community. But in a weird way, you're just finding ways to create these conversations that permanently exist. And these brands honestly have such a high upside that they can just enter that conversation because been over to your house, you have a whole product shelf. We joke that it's as seen on Eric's Instagram, but it's like cool to just try all that stuff because you've created a space that everybody who walks into your doors is almost always interested in something like that.
Mhm. Well, I think some of it is I am careful of who I work with. I want to make sure that they're cool branding, cool founders. I think that they have some runway to be a category leader in their space. Like a Masa chips or a Try Create creatine gummies. So I'm trying to identify what I perceive to be as what Uncrate would pick up, or Gear Patrol, or these places that write about cool hunting, the places that write about the cool new brands. Like I've always been into marketing. I've always enjoyed good branding. So, I'm a whore for that. And I want to showcase like what I think is really cool. So that's some of it. And then again, just like going back to, I think the big difference for me compared to other creators, athletes is I go into it as like I want to massively move the needle for these people. Like I don't want to I'm not going into it being like, I'm so valuable because I have this following. I'm going into it as like, I want to get these creatine gummies in lots of people's hands and mouths. Like, I want to provide massive ROI. And that's why I end up investing in a lot of the brands too. I put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a fair point. I think the other fun thing is a lot of the products you have, especially I think on the supplement side, creatine's been around for a while. I think it's always quoted as like the most studied supplement or something of that sort. I've never seen something like Create in the gummies, and they're darn good. It seems like a lot of the brands that you have, people are already searching for the thing, whether it's creatine or like tart cherry juice was another one I think of with Cherry Bundy, but they're packaged in a new way. How do you think about this? I would almost say like delivery mechanism or form, but right, the demand for the underlying thing is there, but the delivery or the way that it's wrapped is completely different. How often do you think about that as being helpful, hurtful? Like where does that fall in the spectrum?
I think it's so helpful. I mean, it's the difference of this, Chicago Bulls vintage black cutoff T-shirt that I'm wearing right now versus just a black cutoff
T-shirt. Yeah.
T-shirt that has, yeah, like lots of people are going to stop me when they see this. No one's going to stop me just wearing a plain black, cutoff T-shirt. So,
Well, I mean, I think too,
yeah, I
like
mean,
even to use that analogy, if you're in a store looking for a Bulls t-shirt and there's a bunch of very similar t-shirts, and then you get one that's a cool vintage shirt that's got a different font, it's a throwback, that's not going to appeal to everybody. But if you're looking for something like that, it's going to stick out in a very good way. And you're like, I love this is exactly what I was looking for, which again goes back to the fact that it's one thing to find a brand, it's another one to have a unique story around that brand. Something unique about it.
100%. But yeah, I do think packaging matters so much. I mean, I had a call today with a company coming out with a new hydration product, and like they're going the edgy approach. They want to be kind of the liquid death of the space. And I think that's cool. I mean, look at Liquid Death. It's water in a
And they're
can,
crushing
but
it.
their branding is incredible. So yeah, the packaging, the branding, the story, the people you're working with. I mean, all of those encompass brand, and I think it's so important. So yeah, like try create the packaging, the form factor, the taste, the who they're working with, what they're portraying on social media, like all of that is going to help either attract buyers or it's not going to convert you because it's just not
It's just
differentiated
not your
enough.
well, and that's the thing. I often use the word packaging, and in a B2B environment or even like, working with a business and we're the B2B vendor, people look at me like, "Well, no, we don't have a product. Like we're selling a service." You still have to package the service. There's a lot of people that uh, will replace your roof, but they're the one that you're going to choose, something about it's going to resonate with you, right? It's the story, it's the brand, it's the marketing, whatever it may be. And I always lean into that because I think there's so many learning lessons to take, even from the brands that you work with, and apply it to the very boring space of B2B. Still the same thing, right? There's a lot of vendors that do SEO and Google ads. There's very few who coin it as the search economy and do something unique. Not to say that we're the only ones that do that, but wrapping your service, wrapping your product and packaging it, whether it's a physical bag of Create gummies or it's a larger service, that packaging matters a lot more than I think people care to give it credit for.
100%. I mean, there's a reason why I stay in certain hotels because I want to feel a certain way in those hotels. And, there's a reason why I would pick one roofing company over another based on the houses that they're showing on the website where I perceive them to be similar to my home. So I want to do business with someone who I'm perceiving to be working with similar people to me. So, yeah, that packaging is so damn important. Obviously, price is going to be a consideration for some of these services, but the packaging I'm looking at, when it's even a local plumber, I want to make sure that I'm picking someone who I deem to be working with the similar quality people.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. You're finding people that their customers are overlapping with yours, right? It's already a relationship or a match made in heaven, so to speak. You just get to enter that conversation. Yeah, I'd be curious as well. We've talked a lot about this in the sense of your personal brand has grown companies. That's not the purpose of it, but it definitely is an outcome of it, right? Like you get to use that as a growth lever. How did that really? happen? Was it the motive the whole time that you were going to build up an audience and not purposely sell against it, but have an opportunity to be at those discussions, or did it happen organically over the time the other way? Like you just built the audience for fun and those opportunities started coming your way?
I mean, I was living my life. That's the number one thing for me still to this day is I want to live my life in a way that I my head hits the pillow at night and I'm like, that was a fucking awesome day. So it was through doing that that I started to attract people on social media and build an audience. And I mean, that started back in 2010. And then 2015, 16, that was when it started to click that it could become a personal brand and that more and more brands were leveraging influencers to get out
Yeah,
their
they
message.
were looking for people like you.
Exactly. So that's when I started thinking of it more as a personal brand and making sure I was adding value, started to learn photography. And then when stories came out, videography, and, the last 3 or 4 years, it's really been learning more about how to create really engaging content from the first impression to the hook that, people are going to see. Cause I mean, there's so much out there now. You have to really differentiate yourself so
Yeah,
someone
it used to
stops
just
for
be
7 seconds on
I
your.
could post and appear on people's feeds, and that was when you said when stories came out, it made me feel old because I remember when they came out, it was just like every story was the coolest thing in the world because it was new, it was novel, and nobody else was doing it. Now the competition is it's just different. I always use the analogy if you're driving your car at 60 miles an hour and everybody else around you is at zero, you're flying ahead. But if everybody's driving at 60 miles an hour, you're not getting very far. And it makes it harder to go a little bit faster to get all that awareness because other people are playing the same game you are.
100%. Yep. So yeah, now I think about just staying in my lane. Like I kind of know what content works well for me, what content people are going to engage with, and then how to weave in brands so that they benefit from it too. But telling that in a way that I'm just sharing my lifestyle and I'm sharing things that have benefited me and various decisions I made that took me down one path and decisions I could have made that would take me down another path. But I mean, so much of it now is thinking through, audience, social media, what social media favors, which is obviously keeping people within the apps, and they want to attract more people to the apps. So you certainly have to think about, what is content that's going to keep people in the app, so that Instagram wants to serve it to your audience or serve it on the explore feed to new audience. And then, I think a lot about first impressions because I mean, that's how you grow now. There's no real secrets anymore. It's
Yeah, like dig into that too, because I mean, way back when we just did websites, our tagline was "Make better first impressions." It then pivoted to "You don't get a second chance at a good first impression," but both of those hit home on the fact that like that's your virtual handshake. That's one of the most important parts of it. You can win or lose the whole deal or whole business engagement with the first impression. You've mentioned it a few times. Like, how are you thinking through that? If you're creating a piece of content all the way to a business opportunity, like, how do you think through that first impression?
Well, I mean, I think the most unique thing for me to anyone seeing me for the very first time is how I look at my age. So, really running with that. And then, going one step beyond that, it's comparing me to how I looked when I was in my late 20s. Um, that is an immediate first impression that is relatable to a lot of people. So, a lot of my content is going to be based around that so that, if someone sees that on the explore feed, they know nothing about me. They're going to be sucked in a little bit. They're going to be like, oh dang, he's 43 and he looks like that. Interesting. I want to learn more. I wonder what this guy is all about. So that's what I've run with. But that's going to be different for everybody. Some people have lavish lifestyles and they're showcasing vehicles or amazing views they're in, or some people you got to figure out like what is the most unique thing about you.
What's going to grab the attention?
Yeah, and what is going to make an immediate first impression, but it's also like an extension of you. Like that's my story. I'm not crafting something. That's my story that I'm telling, and I figured out a way to tell that story in one image.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. It's the one image or it's the one sentence or it's, how can you deduce the biggest differentiator about your business? So when people are looking for it and they find it, they're like that's what I was looking for. That's exactly what I wanted to see or that's exactly what I've been looking for and I couldn't find it up until now. It's you got to have some type of hook, we always call it, to grab you in and pull the audience in, and then the rest of marketing can take it over. That's where the email comes in, the content on your site, the website itself, the conversion rate, all that stuff matters later on. But you got to find a way to hook people and get in front of them. And whether it's Instagram, Google, you name it, people are looking for that stuff. It's like we've talked about, it's getting your brand in front of them. It's not always going to appeal to everybody, but if you know your ICP, for your customers, if they see your brand, it's a home run. That's exactly what they wanted.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, think about YouTube thumbnails
Yeah.
and the caption on that YouTube thumbnail. It's so important to suck someone in. So, I mean, the best thing you can do is start taking notes of why you are sucked into whatever content you're
And how to
consuming.
recreate
Like,
it for your
why did
business.
you watch that
Yeah.
YouTube video? Yeah, why did you like that Instagram reel? Why did you follow that person? Take notes of all of those things, and that will allow you to start understanding like what you can do for your own personal or business
Yeah, it's a good
brand.
way to cut it. I love it. Well, as we finish up, I know we're getting close on time. What's got you excited in the business world or your even personal world? What's on the horizon?
Business world. I mean, I'm really enjoying these founders only retreats, which, you came to the one here in Denver, you're coming to Palm Springs. So I like curating experiences with a group of people where the sum is way greater than the parts. Like I know everyone attending that is adding value. Everyone there, is they're doing similar things. They have similar interests. They're building businesses. They're into wellness. They're into progression. So I know that like lifelong friendships are going to form from that. And I get a lot of satisfaction in creating those environments where that can happen. So super excited about that. Sarah and I are building a house with our really good friends, Wyatt and Abigail, who own Ice Barrel in Austin. That's going to be set up similar to our home in Colorado, is just kind of this wellness hosting house. So we're really excited about
A lot of 5 p.m. sauna
a lot
sessions.
of 5 p.m. sauna sessions. So that's exciting. But I mean, every day is exciting. I think that's important too, is to make sure that you don't just have these one or two things that you look forward to every year. Like I love every day. I love waking up in the morning and making
I was gonna say
espresso.
you gotta find the little wins. It is totally a
Exactly.
business podcast, but I get to take it wherever. It's crafting and building your day around whatever makes you excited to do it. Like work is not always easy. Like I think a lot of people always look after the I want my day to be perfect and have no stress. That's tough. Stress isn't terrible. It's the roller coaster that's fun. It's finding ways to work in some highs, and there's going to be moments of hard work, but coupled next to things that you enjoy, it makes it fun. Like roller coasters wouldn't be fun if they're flat. They're fun because they go up and down, and I think I see a lot of people try and escape the up and down. They don't want the up and down. They only want the up and none of the down. And if you just assume that the up and down is going to happen and work in the things that are fun to do every day, you'll have the negatives. They'll come, but they get squeezed between two positive things, which makes them a lot easier to move on from and figure out.
100%. And I mean, doing some of these hard things like sauna, cold exposure, hard workouts, they always put me in a good mood. So, you can leverage them like
In
a
a weird
double-edged
way, it's
rug.
you feel accomplished just by putting yourself through a challenge, whether big or small. I think we're built to be challenged. I
100%.
know we
And
are
they
actually.
create resiliency for when bad stressors come up.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to handle a much bigger issue whenever you're putting yourself into these miniature little situations every day. But Eric, man, I appreciate you jumping on. It was fun to chat. I know it's coined the whole podcast is search economy. Again, people think of that and they think of Google, but whether it's Instagram, it's Google, you name it. Uh, you said a word with founders only. It's progression, right? People are looking for ways to be better, and in whatever that may be. Whether it's a B2B service, it's a health product, it's a supplement, it's a new pair of shoes. I think it's cool to build the story, get in front of people, and stand out. Right? You're not always going to get every customer, and that's not really the way business is. But building a really good story and finding avenues to get in front of those people that are already searching for whatever it is you sell is never a bad strategy.
Agree.
Well said, dude. Thanks for jumping on. Hopefully, I'm sure I'll see you in person here soon. But thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.